We got America's mayor, the president's lawyer, the head of this effort to make sure that every legal vote counts. He's defending the country, as he does all the time. One of the best prosecutors in the history of our nation. Put the mob away, put the Wall Street mafia away. Rudy Giuliani. Mayor, thank you very much. I know you're incredibly busy with not just doing interviews, but everything you're doing in the campaign. You finally broke through, and you're going to have a hearing tomorrow, and I think it's in historic Gettysburg, Pennsylvania.
Yeah,
Tell us, how did you finally pull this? It's fabulous. How did you pull it off? And you're the guy that's going to be you're going to be presenting. You're the key presenter with, I guess, some of your witnesses. We do know that Liz Preate Harvey or Havey is going to be also. She's from Montgomery County. She's going to be there with other, I think, officials in the Republican Party to walk through how some of these counties are so out of whack with history. But you're bringing the receipts. You're actually bringing, I think, affidavits and maybe some witnesses. Tell people, how did you finally pull this off, and what are you going to do tomorrow?
Well, the courts have shut us out from having a hearing. When I say the courts, we've only gotten to that point with one court, and that was the court in Pennsylvania. All we were asking for was a hearing so that we could put on a sample of our 50 or so witnesses, maybe 20 of them, and then affidavits. And the judge cut us off, and we're on appeal, but it'll take us a week or two to resolve that. So I spoke to members of the legislature. It's their responsibility to conduct the presidential election, by the way. Article 2, Section 1 of the Constitution puts the electors, the selection of the electors, in the hands of the state legislature, not the governor, not the commissioner of elections. They're just functionaries. The decision maker by the Constitution of the United States are the state legislators. So we went to them and said, basically, we're getting robbed. Not only have they cheated us out of the election, they're cheating us out of a hearing. So we'll have our first hearing tomorrow. We'll produce a sample of the witnesses, maybe 8, 10 of the 50 that we have. But they'll cover the categories of fraud that happened in Pennsylvania. And Pennsylvania was a complete ripoff. I mean, there are well over 600,000 illegitimate ballots in Pennsylvania. And that happened. I mean, the president was ahead 800,000 votes when he went to sleep on Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. All of a sudden, the next morning, they make up 500, 600,000 votes. That's just crazy. And we have the witnesses who will say that no Republican ever got a chance to put their eyes on any of those mail-in ballots, ever. Even though there's a time-honored rule in every state that you get to inspect the ballot, both sides, so that there can't be cheating, we were shut out. Hundreds of inspectors were shut out. Never happened before. They were put in corrals like they were cattle. They were pushed around, pushed out. They didn't want Republicans getting anywhere near these ballots. And there's got to be only one reason for that, Steve, the obvious reason. The ballots were crooked. They were phony. And then we'll have witnesses that come on and say they showed up to vote on election day. And they were told, you voted already. And they said, no, we didn't vote already. Yes, you did. No, we didn't. Well, in fact, they had voted, but somebody else had voted for them. We've got 17,000 situations like that just in Pittsburgh. 17,000 like that. We'll have a list, of course, of the dead people that voted in Philadelphia. It wouldn't be an election in Philadelphia if a lot of dead people didn't vote. I think we got only half of them. The other half, could take a little. It's hard to find dead people. You can't go interview them. You have to go through the list and see. But in some cases in Philadelphia, it's easy because some of them have been dead 30 and 40 years. I mean, they cheat in Philadelphia like you can get away with it because it's a crooked city machine.
Yeah.
And the courts are crooked.
Yep. Let me just jump in here. I just got to ask some things. So, are you saying that you don't think the judge and the federal judge did not schedule and basically try to blow you guys out of the water at the first gating event and didn't give you an evidentiary hearing because he did not want to? He did not want. They did not want to. That's a pretty harsh charge against a federal judge, isn't it?
Well, it's the fact. I mean, very few cases get dismissed on a motion to dismiss. In doing it, he decided that he didn't agree with some of the allegations. Well, you don't make a decision like that on a motion to dismiss. On a motion to dismiss, not to get too technical, you have to assume that everything that I'm saying is true. And if it's true, there's no case. Well, if it is true that they secretly counted 682,770 votes, then I should at least get a hearing, right? Right? You can't decide on paper that that's true or false, particularly when I tell you I have affidavits.
So that's the point I'm trying to get. I'm trying to go through the logical. So, and you're saying, therefore, you get that 600,000 numbers, the 682, that you're saying is what you guys calculated, that the observers were pushed away or not allowed to get and observe, that is of the 2.6 million mail-in ballots, that 682,000 of them were without observers being close enough to actually do checkings of naked ballots, the signatures, and all that.
Correct.
Is that the point you're making? Okay.
Yes, and then we have external evidence that their method of cheating was to stuff the ballot box with those ballots. So of course they wanted to keep us away. I should also correct. Professor Turley goes on television all the time and says we want to cancel 6 or 7 million votes. I have no idea what he's talking about. We're talking about 600,000 votes. We don't want to cancel all the votes. We want to cancel the illegal votes. We'd like to cancel the votes of the dead people. I hope he's okay with that. We'd like to cancel the votes where there's an overvote. So you have some precincts in which, let's say, 4,000 people are registered, but 8,000 people voted. Well, you know there are 4,000 illegitimate votes in that precinct. We have illegal.
So I just want to go.
Voted.
Yeah.
But when people say every category of fraud in Pennsylvania.
Good. And here's my other point. When people say you have no evidence and you've just been throwing wild accusations, it's back to that 600,000, and then tomorrow you're going to bring in every different category and vertical affidavits that are emblematic of others that you could get, right? That add up to a certain number. Now that number does not add up to 682, but you'll be able to say, hey, they were put. It goes over that?
Yes. Well, it's well over 682. I mean, it's at least another couple 100,000 in those other categories.
Okay.
No,
so you can get up to 800,000 plus.
Easily that we can count that needs to be deducted from the vote. And once again, we're not asking for 7 million votes to be canceled. That would be. I think people say that to make us sound like we're stupid, and then they say things like, "We have no evidence," but they don't bother to read the complaint. We actually attach affidavits to some of the complaints, so they won't be able to say that. And affidavits are sworn statements. They're a lot better than Democrats ever produce. They never produce sworn statements. They just produce anonymous people. These are real people. They want to testify. They're citizens of Pennsylvania. We have lined up 80 of them to testify at a trial. We'll take 10 to 12 tomorrow as symbolic of that, so the legislators can see how their own citizens were cheated. I mean, many of them, 17,000 people in Pittsburgh, were cheated out of the right to vote because somebody else illegally voted their ballot in the early voting.
But Dershowitz, in going through your case, said, hey, I think Rudy's got a great case to make an argument to rule in his favor. The problem is Rudy doesn't have anywhere close to the, I think it's 80, is it 82,000, is it 82 or 52 in Pennsylvania right now to overturn it? To actually overturn it, it was 52 the other day. Is it gotten higher?
Do you know where we are, Greg? 82 or 52?
What, it's 80. So it's 82,000. You don't have close to the 82,000. And the courts are not going to give Rudy and the president just a Pyrrhic victory. They're not going to sit there and go, you're absolutely correct. But since you can't show it, because then they're going to have all kind of chaos. I mean, I would love it because it shows that this is illegal. But do you believe in your witnesses that you can come in tomorrow and make the second point that, hey, we're right on the law, and as importantly, we've got the receipts, or we've got the receipts that a judge can sit there and go, yeah, I see where these guys can get to the 82 to actually turn it around, or to not decertify.
I think, and particularly in Pennsylvania, I think we're way over the 82,000 that we need. just in the ballots that were secretly counted, which had to be inspected, we have 682,000. We have 30 or 40,000 people without citizenship who voted. We have 17,000 alone in Pittsburgh, where people had voted before they got there to vote. In other words, somebody had illegally voted for them. We have about 22,000 in Philadelphia. I mean, the numbers add up to way over, maybe 5-6 times the number that we need. If they give us a chance to prove it, we can prove it.
Mayor, can I ask you just to hold over for? We got a couple minutes of commercials, and we want to come back. We got a couple of questions to ask you about Arizona and these other. You're expanding the battlefield today with testimony tomorrow in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, in front of a the Majorities Committee in the Senate is going to sit there and go through the evidence. Rudy's going to bring the receipts so the national media can sit there. It's a forcing function to force them to look at the evidence that Rudy Giuliani has. So take a short commercial break. We're going to return with America's Mayor, Rudy Giuliani, in the case to count all legal votes. Remember, all legal votes should be counted. No illegal votes should be counted. We're going to return in a moment.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Mayor Giuliani's been gracious enough to spend a few minutes with us here trying to explain. So tomorrow, Mayor, we've seen just reams of statistical analysis that shows that it's impossible mathematically for what happened in Pennsylvania to happen. Are you also, besides witnesses and affidavits and evidence, are you going to have any statistical analysis to let the nation, because you're forcing guys to, you're going to force the media to cover this, so finally you can get presented that the the CNN and MSNBC are so data evidence based and science based when they come talk about CCP virus, but not here, they won't say anything. Are you going to tomorrow have someone present what the math is here?
Absolutely. I mean, first of all, you begin with the fact that there are statisticians, and we'll present that in affidavit form, possibly a witness also, but statisticians who say it was impossible in the amount of time and with the amount of votes left for Biden to not only have caught up, but to get as big a lead as he got when he was 850,000 votes behind. There's several. We have several statistical reports like that. There are also reports that analyze, as the vote was being counted, the number of machines that were available. It was impossible to count that many votes during that period of time. In other words, the votes were 3 and 4 times the capacity of the machine. And that's during the period, like, for example, when they dumped 100,000 votes in Detroit. 100,000 votes came in at 4:30 in the morning in garbage cans and in waste paper baskets and in cardboard boxes. There are 4 witnesses to that. They'll be presented in Michigan next week. During that period of time, those votes were counted in something like 45 minutes. It would have taken 3 to 4 hours to do that unless you were double and triple and quadruple counting them. There's evidence like the overvote in Detroit. There are places in Detroit where 200%, 300%, 400% of the registered voters voted. That's, of course, completely impossible. That's why people come in and can't vote, because their names have been used as having voted for a phony voter. And then you, Steve Bannon, show up, or poor Mrs. Jones shows up. She wants to vote, but in the early vote, they'd used Mrs. Jones's name. They'll be inside witnesses. That'll be in Michigan. A woman who worked for the Democrat Party, who was disgusted at what she saw and testifies from the very beginning in September, they trained her how to cheat. And she did all these things. People would come in, they weren't registered, she'd find a name to attach it to. They told her never to check addresses, never to check signatures. If people were having trouble voting, show them how to vote Democrat, which she did on a number of occasions, and so did her colleagues. And she'll testify she was told never to show a Republican any of the ballots. No matter what they said, the police will back you up, she was told. So this is
Mayor,
the kind of
I just
election
wanna-
that we're running, Steve,
Yeah.
all throughout the country.
This is the okay. So this is the you're going down this path, and I just want to make sure the audience understands something, because we are burning daylight. You've got these hearings tomorrow. You've got hearing in Arizona and Michigan Monday, Tuesday next week. They're not with the whole legislature. Some of those have to be called back, like in Arizona. But you show it tomorrow. You show your evidence. That evidence you're showing tomorrow is also the evidence that you're using in federal court to push this forward in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and in Georgia and other places, correct? So it's people are going to see the evidence you've got, and it's being used in two different forms.
They're going to see, obviously, we don't have enough time to show all of it. So we'll show 20% of it representative of the other 80% that we have.
Since we have a safe harbor on the 8th, and that could be moved, right? But the 14th is a hard date when the Electoral College meets, and they've got to have, if they don't, the electors are not sorted out, it gets kicked to the House. Is there enough time to go down both paths, to go about a legislative path and deal with that, and also the courts? Do you feel comfortable you've got enough runway that you can get lift by pursuing both?
I do, but the reason we went to this strategy of getting the evidence out is it seemed to me that some of the courts were intent on making it certain that we couldn't get our facts out so that people could get on television and sometimes in good faith mistakenly say we have no evidence. And sometimes they know we have evidence and they just lie about it. So it really is important for the American people to know that there is substantial evidence and that the president is pursuing this for the good of the American people. This is a major, multi-state, multi-city voter fraud. It is, when I say multi-state, multi-city, it's confined largely to the big cities that have crooked Democrat machines. And they didn't try this in neutral cities or small places.
Right. Swing states, battleground states with big Democratic machines. Yeah. We got about a minute and a half left.
The number of people who have gone to jail in these cities, Democrat politicians, is legendary. I mean, some of them, like every other mayor, goes to jail. In Philadelphia, you have no idea. You have no idea in Philadelphia how many people have been convicted of voter fraud. It's like it's as frequent as parking tickets in some other places. I mean, it's a hobby.
The last question. Dershowitz laid out an alternative. Congressman Kelly's pursuing this in state court where no evidence, no witnesses, no vote. He's just going to the pure constitutional. The state legislature did not have the authority to change this for mail-in ballots. They had to have a referendum. Do you believe that if you tried another alternative, because Dershowitz is giving you the signal that the Supreme Court would probably back you on that. Have you thought? Are you thinking about maybe just going down by pursuing and do a pure thing where you just go hit it on the constitutional issue?
Not quite that, but something very much like that will be filed shortly. I can't exactly disclose the nature of it because it hasn't been decided on, but there'll be a multi-state case that'll be brought. That'll be brought on a pure. None of them are pure legal issues, but a much cleaner legal issue. But also, should the Supreme Court decide that way, you also want the American people to know this isn't a technicality. Trump actually. I can show you how Trump actually won Pennsylvania. I can show you he won by about 300,000 votes. Yeah. I can show you how he won Michigan by about 80,000 votes. My statisticians can do that by counting out the illegal ballots. And we want people to know that because if that is the result, we want them to know that if you count honest ballots, he wins.
Mayor Giuliani, thank you very much. You're doing God's work. We'll put up your Twitter and all your thing for your podcast. Absolutely amazing. America's Mayor. Mayor Giuliani does. I tell you what, he's the ultimate honey badger. You get attacked, you don't care, you just keep going. That's the ultimate honey badger. Doesn't give a crap. He just keeps grinding. The ultimate honey badger. Mayor Rudy Giuliani. Be back in a moment.
Save 20.